Audio settings. This is crazy. I can't get any sound. I can see the picture, but I can't get any sound.
Catherine, it said in the chat that they're working on an issue to fix the sound, so it's not your issue on your end.
Testing. I can hear y'all.
WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound. Enter your attendee ID number followed by pound. If you do not know your attendee number, press pound to continue.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, public hearing.
It is now 7:33. We have a quorum present and Commissioner Galansky is joined us virtually.
Okay, what is the next item? Are we going back to public hearing if that individual is still on?
Public comment?
No,
Yeah, public comment, I'm sorry.
we had one public.
Ms. Peace has spoken already
Oh.
to Commander Pascal,
Okay,
so she withdrew her public comment.
okay, very good,
Okay.
great.
So we're going to go into public hearings. Public hearing number 1, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance 2022-1708, approving a negotiated resolution between the City of Brownsville and Texas Gas Service regarding the company's April 28, 2022 cost of service adjustment, filing, declaring existing rates to be unreasonable, adopting new tariffs that reflect rate adjustment consistent with the negotiated settlement, and finding the rates to be set by the attached tariffs to be just and reasonable, providing for the recovery of the city's and Texas Gas Services reasonable and necessary rate case expenses, adopting a savings clause, determining that this ordinance was passed in accordance with the requirements of the Texas Open Meetings Act, declaring an effective date, repealing and prior ordinances inconsistent with this ordinance, and requiring delivery of this ordinance to the companies and the city's legal counsel, City Manager's Office.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Elizabeth Walker in the Office of the City Manager, and tonight we present as part of a public hearing for first reading of an ordinance regarding Texas Gas Service. Sorry. Thank you. If this seems familiar, it's because we have brought to you in prior years a settlement agreement with Texas Gas Service. We also bring before you on occasion something similar with AEP when it is that we have a settlement, arrive at a settlement agreement on a rate adjustment with them. However, before you this evening is with Texas Gas Service, the annual rate increase for their cost of service agreement tariff. We came before you in 2017 with a primary agreement, and since then we've brought to you extended terms as recently as 2020. Lloyd Gosling, our attorneys and consultants, represent cities across the Rio Grande Valley, and they recommend the approval of the settlement agreement as proposed. They find that the cost of service calculations were consistent with the COSA tariff, but they found that there were some adjustments that were appropriate. Altogether, Texas Gas Service claimed an entitlement of just over $3.7 million. By negotiation, there was a reduction of $967,040 from the company's original request. The impact then you can see here across the various customer classes to the monthly bill. The rightmost column ranging from $2.13 for residential up to $191.05 on the industrial and industrial standard transport customer classes. Presented this evening is settlement by ordinance 2022-1708. To finalize the COSA filing, we leverage the consultant expertise. That consultant is reimbursable through the settlement process. We have arrived at a negotiated settlement which we believe is the best rate for citizens. Accordingly, we recommend approval on first reading. Are there any questions?
Any questions? All right.
This is a public hearing, Mayor.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item? All right, do we have a motion to close?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, do we have any motions on the item?
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing number 2. Public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 2022-1703 to annex into the city of Brownsville boundary limits a property described as being 36.943 acres of land, more or less, comprised of 4.733 acres out of Lot 4, 4.72 acres out of Lot 5, 4.707 acres out of Lot 6, 4.523 acres out of Lot 7, 4.545 acres out of Lot 8, 4.558 acres out of Lot 9, 4.572 acres out of Lot 10, and 4.585 acres out of Lot 11, Lane Track Number 1, located on Florida Road. Planning and Redevelopment Department.
For the record, I have a conflict of interest, so I'm going to log off for this part, and I've executed, I just need to drop it off, a conflict of interest affidavit.
Commissioner, was it number 2 or number 4? I'm sorry.
And 4, sorry,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Eduardo Garrido. I'll be presenting the annexations and zoning cases tonight. This is a public hearing and action to voluntarily annex into the city of Brownsville a future single-family subdivision comprised of 220 lots for a total of 36.943 acres fronting Florida Road. The annexation request conforms to Chapter 43 of the Texas Local Government Code. This is the aerial of the zone. Subdivision will be part of District Number 2. This drawing shows a preliminary layout of the 220 lots. Development will have to comply with all UDC subdivision standards. Staff does recommend approval to annex 36.943 acres of land into the city of Brownsville.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments from the commission? This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? We have a motion to close?
Move to close. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, do we have any motions on the item?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Public hearing number 3, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance 2022-1704 to annex into the city of Brownsville boundary limits a property described as being 35.922 acres of land, more or less, comprised of all Block 148, El Jardín Subdivision, Espiritu Santo Grant, located near the intersection of Old Port Isabel Road and Morrison Road. Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Okay, so this is also a request to annex into the city of Brownsville for a future single-family subdivision comprised of 125 lots for a total of 35.92 acres fronting Old Port Isabel Road. The annexation request conforms to Chapter 43 of the Texas Local Government Code. Here's an aerial of the zone. Subdivision will be part of the District 2 as well. Here's a preliminary layout of the 125 lots. And as mentioned, development will have to comply with all UDC subdivision standards. Staff recommends approval to annex 35.92 acres of land into the city of Brownsville.
Mayor and
Okay.
Commission. Mayor Commissioners, just to reflect that Commissioner Galansky is back on for this item,
Okay,
for item
thanks.
number 3.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? Okay, do I have a motion to close?
Move to close.
We have a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, do we have any motions on the item?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Public hearing number 4. Public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance number 235-2022-016-S to rezone from commercial corridor to regional center with a specific use permit to allow an event center for an approximate 2,000 square feet out of the northwest corner of Lot 1, Block 1, La Placita subdivision located at 1655 East Ruben Torres Senior Boulevard, District 3, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
So this is a request to rezone approximately 2,000 square feet out of the existing La Placita Commercial Plaza fronting East Ruben Torres Senior Boulevard. Applicant is requesting to rezone from corridor commercial to regional center with a specific use permit for an event center. There were 9 mailouts and no verbal or written opposition. The predominant land use in the surrounding area is single-family dwelling. Additional uses such as multifamily development and commercial businesses are also present within the vicinity. This is a street view of the property. And this is the aerial. Staff does want to point out that with the adoption of the UDC, additional measurements are required for commercial uses abutting residential properties in order to protect this from noise and heavy traffic contamination. The existing property does not offer the distance between the property line and the existing building required by the UDC. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval and allow the use to encroach into residential adjacency provisions which require a 40-foot buffer from property line to the commercial building. However, if approved tonight, staff recommends implementing the following conditions. Which is to address sound mitigation, also establish hours of operation, and install additional commercial waste receptacles.
Did P&Z approve it with those conditions?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, there were actually 2 more recommendations added after PNC had recommended approval, which is the hours of operation and the additional commercial waste receptacle. However, they did agree with the sound mitigation measurements.
I think those was added because they have an established residential neighborhood fronting the small commercial center that's mostly medical, and that to avoid noise attenuation, which then becomes a problem when it comes with trash receptacles and just noise after hours. I think that's why staff thought it would be better to add additional conditions.
Now, there was a bar there, wasn't there?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a bar there, so that's probably noisier.
It was
Yeah,
very
but,
noisy.
and that's where my concern comes in is I can open a bar there and be open till 2 a.m. But this guy wants a conference center. He has to shut down at midnight and 8 p.m. during the week. But my bar can stay open till 2 a.m.
What's an event center? A little different than a
Yeah,
conference.
event center.
That's
But-
what I'm
but
saying.
yeah,
Is the
makes
restrictions
sense.
are harder on him when I can go way beyond that if I'm opening a bar. That it doesn't seem like there's parity to me there.
Mayor, just wanted to clarify that the P and Z recommendation is a straight approval with the allowance for the encroachment into the setback requirement between commercial and residential. The other 2 additional recommendations are staff recommendations.
Okay.
The other 2 were, I'm sorry, I didn't get it. You said what?
Staff recommendations.
Oh, staff recommendation, but is that something that needs to be followed, or is that,
It's up to us.
That's up to you guys.
thank you.
That would be my only concern is, and what does staff say on that? If the fact that a bar could stay open with a band till 2 a.m.,
And I think it was a loud band.
I think our only reservation with the event centers is a mile up the road with the Hacienda Event Center. We receive weekly, daily complaints from abutting property owners on the operation of an event center, so we're a little bit cautious in how we're moving forward with our recommendations with
Okay.
event centers specifically.
And on the waste receptacles, the three-sided masonry screening wall, is that the standard for all the other businesses in that shopping complex?
Yeah.
Public comment or public hearing? Yeah.
Okay. You guys done?
Yes.
All right, any other comments from the commission? All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? Come on up. Come on up to the mic, please.
Okay, hi.
And please state
Elizabeth
your name.
Holzman. To begin with, no, they did not recommend the last two things. They recommended it without that, as long as we soundproof the location. These two girls, when I was growing up, we didn't have any money, and our parents had to save for a quinceañera and things like that. And their plan, they signed a 10-year lease with us already in March, and their plan was to have people put it kind of like on the layaway plan and pay in installments, and I think that that was a great idea. We did limit them to 2,000 square feet. I have 14,000 square feet available upstairs, but we're not here proposing that. We're proposing 2,000. Yes, there's a bar. There's also a pool hall. Why can they stay open till 2? This plaza's been in existence for more than 20 years. Why are these ordinances being applied now? That's my question. And the other, there's no way that they're gonna open Friday and Saturday from 8. What is this new? I mean, I don't even know where this is coming from. Midnight on Fridays and Saturdays at 8. How? How is that possible? And why is that fair? That's what I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, do I have a motion to close?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, do we have any motions on the item?
I'll move to approve without the hour restrictions.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second without the hour restrictions. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing number 5, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance 235-2022-018-S to rezone from traditional neighborhood corridor to regional center with a specific use permit to allow a used car lot for Lot 8, Block 8, East Brownsville Addition Subdivision, First Section, located at 1833 Southmost Road, District 1, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
For this case, applicant is seeking to renew their state license. Therefore, they're requesting to rezone from traditional neighborhood corridor to regional center with a specific use for the existing used car lot. Property is fronting Southmost Road. There were a total of 14 mail-outs with no written or verbal opposition. The predominant land use in the surrounding area is commercial business. Additional uses such as undeveloped land, public school, and single-family dwelling are also present within the vicinity. This is the street view of the property. And here's the aerial. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval to rezone to regional center with a specific use, addressing staff recommendations, which are the following conditions. And so to provide organized parking of inventory to minimize vehicular clutter, install additional vegetation buffers and screening to provide an aesthetic view, keep all storage of vehicles within property boundaries, and install a masonry wall throughout the perimeter to protect the privacy of abutting uses. And lastly, to limit all work on vehicles within enclosed areas in order to minimize nuisance produced by mechanic and body work.
Here's another one where I'd question why masonry for the walls, especially when it abuts a commercial establishment next door.
Right, so that is the UDC standard to provide masonry walls for commercial properties.
And this has been a car lot since 2014, right? So they're just asking to keep it the same?
Yes, sir.
But now they have to build a brick wall.
Yeah. They were out of compliance, I think, originally, right? Am I correct on that?
Privacy fence would be
Sorry, what?
reasonable.
It's been out of compliance even before, or was it in compliance before?
So I'm not really sure if they had we couldn't verify if there was a CO.
Rick, do you know?
Not sure we have a violation of their certificate of occupancy. It's the zoning, it would have been a non-conforming used car lot. And so in order for them to secure their state auto dealer license, it is required that they be on a legally zoned properties. So they're asking for their zoning to come into conformance now.
Okay, but I guess my question was prior to the UDC, they were operating fine. There was no issue with them being out of compliance with the
They were
zoning?
legally non-conforming. They could continue to operate the way they were.
Okay.
And I have a question. If the masonry walls are a UDC requirement, then why is this showing up as a staff recommendation?
Because they're seeking to change their zoning in order to comply with the UDC now so that they can qualify for their state license. So it's an SUP requirement, and through the SUP, you can address aesthetic related issues.
I'm not
But it's
sure
a
I understand.
recommendation by the staff. Again,
No,
it's up
I
to
get that it's a recommendation by the staff, but if the UDC requires it with this new zoning, then why does staff need to recommend it on top of that?
Well, because it's an SUP, it's not a new building permit. If it was a new building permit, they would have to come in and comply with the masonry wall standards.
Okay.
Seems like just consistency more than anything, right?
Do you see brick walls around car lots around town?
There hasn't been any new ones, right? Then if there is a new one, then they would have to put up masonry walls? Okay.
These used car lot regulations, of course, were a result of conversations held during the development of the UDC with certain areas of the community that were concerned about the grease, the runoff, the impact of used car sales lots and mechanic shops. And so the UDC incorporated new rules to try to address those impacts. And so that's why you see the masonry walls, the landscape screening, those type of tools.
I get the landscaping. I just think with a car lot, you want people to see your merchandise, and masonry walls prevents that. Yeah, but is it more and I could understand if it's residential, but if I've got.
The masonry, just to clarify, the masonry is on the side.
On the
Right.
side and the rear.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? Come on up, sir. Just please tell us your name and come on up to the mic.
Hi, Carlos Garza. I'm here on behalf of the owner of this property, CG Auto Sales. So I agree and I'll work with the commission to work on all of these recommendations. But I also, to your point, it's very hard for us to build masonry walls all around the property. It's, an acre, so it's going to be very expensive. We've been there for around 10 years almost, and we've had no violations, no issues prior. So I just ask that we follow all these recommendations except the masonry wall standard. That is my final comment.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else? Okay, do you have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, do we have any,
Was somebody trying to say something online?
It's Commissioner Galansky. She was voting.
Oh, okay.
do we have any motions on the item?
I'll move to approve without the masonry wall requirement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve without the masonry walls. Any discussion? Yes?
So I just want to, I don't really have an opinion one way or the other about the masonry wall.
You're off.
Sorry. I understand you keep your lot very neat, and that's great, and I understand. But some more than one person from the public, correct me if I'm wrong, came to the planning meetings for UDC expressing this desire for walls because there were car lots that were unsightly and so forth, correct? So although I'm not going to object to this particular one, but I do want to say a word about making exceptions for one and not another when the reasons were solid to begin with to put it in there.
So I just put that out there.
I agree with what you're saying. I think the difference here is he's been there for 10 years.
Oh, I'm not
No,
going
no,
to
I
vote
mean,
against it.
No, I'm just saying, I believe that that's a valid point for why not to consider it at this point. I mean, we grandfather everything else. We have restaurants can't walk through, and we're giving them proclamations, right?
Mi
So-
pueblito?
No, I haven't got one. So
I
I
just-
think
I
when we
think
do
it's
something
impor-
like this, it's important for us just to understand. I mean, to put masonry on an acre is,
I agree. I'm just saying that out loud so the public understands why we are making an exception to
Yes.
something we just finished adopting.
And I just remind the commission, the prior zoning ordinance was 50 years old. This one is 1 year old, and we're going to certainly work with the document. And when the commission feels that there may have been an error in direction under the original code development, we just come back and we amend the code.
no, I think what she's saying, and I agree with her, it's correct, it's fine, it seems good. But when we have somebody who's been there for so long, I mean, we should try to work with them.
And Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, on the others, if this is a lot that, let's say they sold it and then it became unsightly, code enforcement could go out there and cite them for
That's
how
right.
they're parking their vehicles, how they're keeping the lot, everything else, even without the walls, they could be cited and fined.
That's correct.
Very good.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing number 6, public hearing in action on first reading on ordinance 235-2022-906 to rezone from residential estate to commercial corridor for an approximate 1.0 acres out of the southeast corner of 3.24 acres out of Lot 7, Block 306, El Jardín re-subdivision, located on the northwest corner of California Road and South Indiana Avenue, District 2, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
So this city-initiated case to rezone from residential estate to corridor commercial to establish a mechanic shop. The property is fronting California Road. Now, to provide some context to this case, this is a property that was downzoned with the adoption of the UDC due to the current vacant use. There were 9 main lots and no written or verbal opposition. The predominant land use in the surrounding area is single-family dwelling set on large lots. Additional uses such as undeveloped land, commercial business, and airport are also present within the vicinity. This is a street view of the property, and this is the aerial. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval to rezone from residential estate to corridor commercial.
Can you go back to the aerial
Yes,
shot,
sir.
please? Okay, thanks. And planning and zoning denied this, is that right?
We recommended denial, actually. PNC recommended approval.
Oh, they
The
approved.
staff recommended denial.
Okay.
What was the reason for staff's recommendation?
That a mechanic shop will fall out of context in the area.
It looks like mostly residential all around. It's a nice,
Except for the
Suck a
trucking
lot.
company across the street.
what's that?
Except for what looks like, I don't know if that's a trucking company, catty corner to them.
That is a freight terminal.
It's a what?
A freight terminal?
Freight terminal? Mhm.
There is a residential home fronting the property. And I think additional residential homes on the other side, Rick, if you want to.
Mayor and Commission, this is a staff-initiated case, because when we went through the process of adopting the UDC, the development of a zoning map was not part of that project, and so this was a in-house, staff-driven zoning map development project. We went throughout the city and looked parcel by parcel to try to transfer the property rights that owners enjoyed prior to the UDC into the UDC zoning map. In this area, when we looked at the area, the predominant land use across the street is large estate lot, single-family residential, and so we downzoned this particular tract from commercial or industrial, from
I believe it was
industrial to residential estate lot, size lot, so that we'd have a similar development pattern. The only exception is the freight terminal across the street, which could relocate at some point in the future. So we felt that the predominant land use was residential estate, and so the staff downzoned the property. But again, we initiated the case because we informed the commission that if we downzone somebody's property and they had an issue with that, that we would bring those cases back to the commission. That's why this case is here.
So Rick, can you clarify then, the staff initiation is to change this to what?
Residential estate, large lot residential, like the properties directly across the street.
Okay, because the agenda item reads to rezone from residential estate to commercial corridor.
Well, that's the owner's request. We're just facilitating that request.
Okay. All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on this item? Okay. Do we have a motion to close?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, do we have any motions on the item?
I'll move to deny so we can dispense with it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Items for individual considerations. Item number 1, discussion and action to approve resolution number 2022-041, supporting Robin Hood Terrace LLP's application to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program located at 950 Robin Hood Drive, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Mayor and members of the commission, the South Texas Collaborative for Housing Development, Inc. is requesting a resolution of support for their application to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for their tax credit affordable housing program. It's for a 25-acre tract, approximately 236 units. I don't know if there's a representative here. Doesn't appear so. So the nonprofit is asking the commission if they would issue a resolution in support of their project.
Okay. Do you have any motions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thanks.
Item number 2, consideration and action to award a contract to Half Associates, Inc. for the professional engineering and surveying services for the CIP 02-Coffee Road design for reconstruction, District 2 and 3. The agreement is an independent contract agreement based on our on-call term contract for engineering, surveying, street drainage improvements, and miscellaneous service projects for the city of Bronzeville, QES-40-0620 for the amount of $626,000, Engineering and Public Works Department.
Good afternoon, Mayor Commissioners. Doro Garcia with the City of Bronzeville Engineering Department. The item before you today, first of all, I would like to start off by saying on the next 4 items, they will be complete streets in regards to the public comment that you all had. So they will either include sidewalks or bike trails. This particular one is Coffee Port Road from FM 802 to Port Isabel Road. This is for the design of the roadway. It will be a urbanized design with curb and gutters. And the cost for this project, $626,000. We're looking at about a 9-month design schedule, and we're recommending approval on this item. If y'all have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them at this time.
So 6 months design, Dodo. What about construction? I'm sorry, 9 months. What about construction?
Correct.
What, does that include construction too?
No, that's design.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
what about
this is-
construction?
It's, well, once we get funded, that we're looking for funding on this project for 2023 and 2025. So it's a 2-year funding cycle on this. We'll probably break it up into phases. So the construction would probably run anywhere from about 12 to 18 months.
So what are the 2 phases? What's phase 1 and what's
We
phase 2?
haven't phased it out yet. Right now, we're barely on the design. Once we start doing the design, determine the complexity, where we can find a good break point for it is what would determine the phases. Yeah, at this time, we're doing the design of that segment, and the phasing will come as, you know, depending the scope of the work, we still need to see what kind of utility issues we run into, how much that's going to cost. We have estimates right now. I mean, these are pretty big projects that we're presenting for you today.
And also, I'm sorry, Rose. go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
What I'd like to see also in the future on proposals like this, I'd like to see some type of rendering of what it's going to look like when it's completed.
We can definitely have a workshop once we have schematics for it. It's a lot easier once we have survey data. A lot of these that we're urbanizing from rural section to modern section with curb and gutters, we need to determine exactly what our right-of-ways are and how that is going to affect the cross-section. So I'll definitely make it a point early on in the design to bring some of the conceptual plans before we're headed with the designs on these
Yeah,
streets.
I think that would help allay some of the public's concerns. If they see, oh, look, there is going to be a trail or there is going to be a sidewalk.
Definitely.
How do you foresee it being a complete street, or you haven't decided until
All of
the
these will be
design work
complete
is done?
streets.
No, I know, that. In what way?
Define complete street.
No, I know
That
what
we
a
will
complete street
consider
is.
we will definitely comply with our transportation plan and comply with our parks, sidewalk, and trails master plan as well. So any trails that are indicated on those plans, they will be included in the design and construction of these projects.
And you said that did include curbs and
Remember
gutters?
That includes curb and gutters.
I meant, what I was asking is, if you're going to have a curb and gutter, is it just going to be a bike lane and a sidewalk, or is it going to be a multi-use path? And you may not have determined that yet because you haven't done the design, but that's what I was asking.
Okay, yeah, I think when we come back with the presentation of the different cross-sections, we'll be able to give you exactly what we're going to be doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, because you'll probably need some right-of-way based on how narrow that street looks.
On some areas, on most of these, we will likely need additional right-of-way.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Item number 3, consideration and action to award a contract to Ambiotech Civil Engineering Group for the professional and engineering and surveying services of the CIP 01-E 14th Street Design for Reconstruction, District 1. The agreement is an independent contract agreement for an on-call term contract for engineering, surveying, street drainage improvements, and miscellaneous service projects for the city of Brownsville, QES-40-0620, for the amount of $338,000. Engineering and Public Works.
This is 14th Street, and we're looking to improve this from Highway 48 to Southmost. This particular one right now is rural section, 4 lanes. On this one, we are looking, I'll be really upfront on this one, we're really looking to make this into a 3-lane, a large center lane, and 2 driving lanes. We find that there's a lot of trucks that park or unload from here, so we do need to make several accommodations for those business owners that are on this street. And we do have several of them that we've already met with and told them about the project, because a lot of their properties were developed 30, 40 years ago, and their driveways are in very poor conditions, which attributes to a lot of the issues that we have in this area. So we are definitely looking into having something different than what's out there right now. We will also continue with our Complete Streets program, and we do have some bus stops as well that we'll be placing in this area. This particular project, we're looking at about a 3-month design timeline. It's a little bit shorter because this area, it's very well defined on our right-of-way and what we have to deal with. The cost for this project is $338,000, and we're recommending approval as well. If y'all have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them at this time.
The bus stops will come after the street's done?
Yes.
Okay.
On that one, Doro, can we make the right-hand lanes be the heavyweight? Because yeah, usually you only use 1 lane, or the cars that are trying to get to downtown, and so that the heavy, because right, isn't it just that the ground can't support the weight of the heavy trucks that
Well,
service that
that's
area?
why we're looking to make it 3-lane, because we really see that the 4 lanes is not necessarily what's needed out there. So it'll make us reduce the cost, one, and our maintenance cost, and it'll still serve the tenants. That's why we've spoken to the business owners to make sure that this is something that they'd be open-minded to.
Okay.
But the idea is that the entire road will be a heavyweight corridor.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So let me ask a question, because yeah, and that's where the rendering would help me. But if this is going to go to 3 lanes, and I understand the logic there, because right now in the far right lane, trucks are parking there to load and unload. But if we're putting in curbs and gutters, then where is that parking going to be able to occur for those businesses?
In the design, we don't encourage parking on our roadways. What they park for is to unload. And that's one, on the design itself, is one of the things that we need to look at, is see where we can have those areas so that they can perform these operations that they do. There's really 2 tenants or 2 property owners that we're going to be working with to see how we can accommodate. Most of the other ones don't have that issue. There's only 2 that, due to the size of their lots and what they have developed, it's very limited, the space that they have. But we'll definitely, like I said, with all of these, we'll come back when we're like at a 20 or 30% a conceptual layout that we can definitely share with the commission, so that you can see where we're headed as the direction we're going for the final design.
Thank you, Doro.
Is that a normal thing in the city where, trucks are parked on city streets to load and unload?
No.
Yeah, I would think that would be a safety issue on all fronts.
It usually is, and that's part of the reason why we're, since it is a 4-lane road, we know they do it, we know they're gonna continue doing it. It's just trying to find a way to accommodate it where it's safe. That's one of the biggest reasons why we're going to 3 lanes, is to maximize the use of our right-of-way and the cost, of course.
It may be a good spot to consider a very protected bike lane, because otherwise, the traveler does not have any security at all amongst the traffic.
I think it's very likely on this one that the bike lane and the sidewalk would be aside from the road. I mean, we have enough right-of-way, and that's part of the reason of the reduction to begin with.
Any other comments? Are there any motions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
Item number 4, consideration and action to award a contract to SWG Engineering for the professional engineering and surveying services for the CIP 03-Wild Rose Lane design for reconstruction, District 3 and 4. The agreement is a subcontract agreement for an on-call term contract for engineering, surveying, street drainage improvements, and miscellaneous service projects for the city of Brownsville, QES-040-0620, for the amount of $172,328.12. Engineering and Public Works.
This particular roadway is probably a little bit less intrusive as the last 2. This is an existing curb and gutter road. We're going to be overlaying a portion from Bernard to Central, and then full reconstruction from Honeydale to Central Boulevard. And once again, this street will be a complete street as well, with sidewalks probably on the sides. And the estimated cost for the design on this project is $172,000. On this particular one, we do have some of the funding available already for construction. And with hopefully the approval of the next budget year's funding, we will complete this street. At this time, we're recommending approval for the design on 5 months for $172,328.12.
Doro, you mentioned Bernard, but I see on the slide it says Korea.
Bernard. It's Bernard.
Okay. That'll be a longer stretch
Yeah,
if
it's
it
a
goes to
little bit
Bernard.
longer.
Should be good.
Well, just one street over.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That slide's 1 street short.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
Item number 5, consideration and action to award a contract to Hanson Professional Services for the professional engineering and surveying services of the CIP 05-Old Highway 77 design for reconstruction, District 4. The agreement is an independent contract agreement for an on-call term contract for engineering, surveying, street drainage improvements, and miscellaneous service projects for the city of Brownsville, QES-40-0620, for the amount of $635,000. Engineering and Public Works.
On the previous comment on Bernard, I believe the section from Bernard to Korea was already overlaid, and that's why it's not shown on here. I'll confirm it.
Thank you.
So this is probably one of the more popular ones that we've been getting requests on. This is Old Highway 77, the most complex one out of the 4 today. This particular street, I think everybody's very familiar with it. And we have a 10-month design timeline on this one, and we're looking to construct this over probably about 24 months. Once again, we'll break it up into 2, possibly 3 phases, depending on the complexity of the utilities as well. We do have a lot of flooding issues on this road that we need to deal with, and all of that is being considered. This one is probably the harder one for the complete streets due to the limited right-of-way that we have. And, but it is definitely going to be considered and implemented. The cost for the design on this particular project is $635,000. And this is also funded through our CIP program as well. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them at this time.
So in my tenure, Dodo, I believe there have been 2 bicycle deaths on this road. So I know it's a funky amount of space, but whoever does the design work really needs to get creative, because I'd really not like to see a 3rd.
Definitely, I think this is probably going to be the most expensive out of all the projects. And part of the reason is the urbanization, and in order to maximize the use of that right away, we will have to do a lot of stormwater infrastructure so that we can maximize the use of the right of way that we have.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
And just a quick note, we do have 2 more streets that will be coming before you at the next meeting, in case you're wondering why we didn't bring all 6 at this meeting, okay?
Okay, thanks.
Item number 6, consideration and action, if any, related to the approval of a public-private partnership with Lit Texas and BTX Fiber for the construction, operations, and maintenance of citywide broadband infrastructure, including but not limited to incorporation and approval of a right-of-way and encroachment agreement, engineering, procurement, and construction contract, and middle mile connection agreement, and grant of indivisible rights of use agreement. City Manager's Office.
Good evening again, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Elizabeth Volker in the Office of the City Manager, and in an embodiment, I think, of a public-private partnership, I'm joined this evening by Renee Gonzalez with Lit Texas LLC, and together we'll be addressing the agenda item. This is a presentation on the City of Brownsville's much anticipated fiber network broadband project through a public-private partnership. We will review together this evening topics, including the negotiation timeline, some of the survey data and justifications, and conclude with our recommendation. The public-private partnership negotiations commenced in earnest in March with the presentation to this body of the term sheet. Subsequently, we agreed to letters of intent. Then we proceed with the P3 negotiations themselves, authoring the partnership agreements in-house. All the credit to our city attorney and his staff. The final negotiated agreement was achieved on July 15th, and we will present these for execution. Since it is we last came to you, the Texas Broadband Plan has been released by the Texas Broadband Development Office within the Office of the Texas Comptroller. And what we heard through that report was very similar to the takeaways that we heard from our own feasibility study. In the listening tour, there are these echoes of slow data speeds, unreliable access, affordability, and coordination concerns. We learned about households without fiber internet at all. And we learned about households that are served exclusively by a single internet service provider. It was confirmed that it is the highest rate of any region in the state with, and also then the opine from the Texas Broadband Plan that only fiber technology provides the highest quality internet. And that establishes a base metric of speeds of 110 megabytes per second or faster.
My name is Rene Gonzalez. As Ms. Walker mentioned, I'm Chief Strategy Officer with Lit Communities for the record. I'd like to share with you guys some survey data that was collected in 2020 at the height of the pandemic, right through the end of the year of December 31st, 2020. And we're going to keep them based on the themes of access, affordability, and innovation. Regarding access, I know you all have copies of this in your agenda packets. So essentially, the takeaway here is that when we conducted this survey, which was done on a 99% confidence level within a 3% margin of error, that approximately 1,475 survey respondents indicated a 93% support for this effort. That was very overwhelming from what we see throughout the country where we undertake these surveys. The numbers are right there in front of you to see. Obviously, very overwhelming support, and you can see these comments that were directly provided to us through this survey portal. Out of the 824 respondents who actually took the speed test, because not everybody did that, approximately 260, roughly 32%, fell below the FCC standard of 25/3. We're also showing you on this table here that some of them had instances of being under 25 megabits per second download, being under 3 upload, or both. And when we looked at this data geospatially, we saw that this wasn't defined to just one pocket within the city of Brownsville. It was across the entire city of Brownsville. Out of the 1,594 respondents from Brownsville who took the survey, the two most popular demanded service offerings were the 250 symmetrical tier and the gigabit package. And what this means to me, and to hopefully you all as the city commission, is that there is overwhelming support and an appetite for fiber in the city of Brownsville. It's not being offered today, but through the work here that we have worked collaboratively over the last 2 years, you're giving the residents what they're demanding. Obviously, you can see some of the quotes here for the appetite and the demand for these services. Out of the respondents who did take that speed test, 23% of the respondents who subscribed to services greater than 100 had survey data that fell below what they were being advertised. 21% of the folks who pay for services between 25 and 50 megabits per second also fell below the advertised speeds of what they're paying. So there again, you can kind of see all the data right there for you in some of these quotes. They're all there for you to understand and read, and we can provide them fully for you all's disclosure. Among the survey respondents who provided additional comments, affordability was mentioned by almost a third. That's pretty significant. Combined with the fact that American Community Survey data shows that almost 67% of households in Brownsville are lacking internet connectivity, we have to be recognizing that affordability is a huge concern. And what we're doing as part of this partnership is that we've created an LLC called BTX Fiber that will serve Brownsville's residents and businesses with the fastest and the highest quality broadband internet service commercially available. And to that end, we're proposing a variety of services ranging from affordable lower speed tiers through gigabit and commercial tiers for your businesses. We understand the importance of affordability, as I just mentioned, and that's why we're offering a symmetrical 100 by 100 plan that will be 100% subsidized through the American Affordable Connectivity Program for eligible households. This is on par for what was announced at the White House just a few months ago, and now the city of Brownsville is able to raise that banner and say that they have a provider that's able to do that for their residents. We're willing to start packages at $29.99 a month for that 100 megabit package, all the way up to a 250 megabit plan, half a gig, and 1 gigabit. And I'll pass it back to Elizabeth so we can get to the innovative approach.
How it is we arrived at this structure really is with a two-pronged approach of the middle mile and the last mile. Towards the middle mile, the city will be investing $19.5 million in American Rescue Plan Act funding. Lit will oversee the design, construction, and operation and maintenance of this network through a separate agreement. And the middle mile network will connect community anchor institutions and select BPUB sites that they shared with us to be their primary locations for service. And these will be the public safety critical infrastructure will be connected through the middle mile. And then the middle mile will serve as the backbone by which will extend the last mile.
Very briefly on the last mile perspective, Lit Texas and BTX Fiber, through our capital partners, will be investing $70 million in private equity funding to build the last mile network. BTX Fiber will build the last mile progressively as the middle mile network will be built, and it will be available to homes and businesses citywide.
So through our innovative approach, we came together on shared shared values and a common interest. We'll be closing the fiber gap for Brownsville, as identified in the State of Texas Broadband Plan. The city will retain ownership of the middle mile infrastructure to serve essential locations and enable infrastructure integrity and service standards. The proposed network architecture and equipment will be designed as future-proof, with the ability to upgrade the network speed capacity as it becomes available. The middle mile network will be safe, reliable, and resilient by redundant ring architecture that's 100% underground. And with open architecture, the middle mile will be available through a lottery system to other potential internet service providers, other ISPs, enabling market competition and potential revenue generation as the city retains its ownership in the middle mile.
And rather than investing in the technology of yesterday, i.e. copper and hybrid coaxial, BTX Fiber is committed to bringing the best available technology to the city through a fiber optic deployment and a suite of services supported by Open Application Services. This is an end-to-end fiber network, and that does not exist here today. The last mile network will pass every home and business in the city, not just government buildings. And obviously, as I mentioned previously, affordability is top of mind for all partners, and BTX Fiber is committed to participating in the ACP program and offering plans that are accessible for Brownsville's residents and its businesses.
The recommendation then is to authorize the execution of the fiber network coordination agreements with Lit Communities, Lit Texas LLC, and its affiliate BTX Fiber LLC. Are there any questions?
Do you have any questions from the commission? I move to approve. Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow there will be a signing ceremony. Just as to give credit where credit is due, there'll be 162 pages to these various legal instruments. And they'll call for a couple of signatures in different places, but there are other fingerprints all across those documents. And just a quick shout out to so many who did the heavy lift to bring together this project, working on it every week, if not every day, and some nights and weekends. But they know who they are, but Andres and Bill, Eddie and Elias, Marina and Carol, Victor and Will. Thank you so very much.
Item number 7, consideration and action to authorize the city manager or his designee to execute a professional services contract, CMG-94-0822, with CMG Consulting LLC for consulting services related to management and oversight of the construction and deployment of citywide broadband infrastructure in an amount not to exceed $832,500. City Manager's Office.
Again, good evening. This item is for the consideration of a professional services contract with CMG Consulting, represented this evening by Andres Caballo, who you've met on a previous occasion. He represents the subject matter experts who have helped to guide us through this process of a citywide broadband infrastructure plan. We seek to engage them to establish a local program management office to act as the owner's representative to provide leadership on the best practices, methodology, and tracking of key performance indicators on this broadband project. The source of funding is the ARPA funding allocated for the middle mile project, for the middle mile construction. During the negotiations, as it is, we scrubbed the schedule of values. We identified that built into the proposed schedule of values was sales tax, for which it is we are exempt. So leveraging the sales tax deduct, we'd be able to then engage in project management services, which are eligible through ARPA funding. We recommend approval of the proposed agreement with CMG Consulting LLC to ensure the technical project oversight for the 24-month construction period. Are there any questions?
Do you have any questions? All right, do you have any motions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item number 8, consideration and action to approve a recommendation by Marco A. Arredondo, procured for professional engineering energy firm services through the interlocal purchasing system, contract number 210602, and authorize the city manager or appointee to enter into a contract with a selected retail electric provider, REP-72-0622, for up to 10 years as recommended and approved by the city's energy consultant, Financial Services Department.
Hi, good evening, Honorable Mayor, distinguished commissioners. My name is Dr. Antonio Caldwell. I'm with the Financial Services Department. This evening, I'll be presenting to you the option that the department has for electric light poles and traffic lights that are not within the Brownsville PUB jurisdiction. We are requesting that the commissions approve and authorize the interim city manager or her appointee to enter into a contract with the selected retail electric provider for up to 10 years with the recommendation and approval from the energy consultant, Mr. Marco Arredondo. At this time, we do have Mr. Arredondo present, and I'd like to invite him up to present his findings.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Marco Arredondo. I'm a professional engineer. And I actually started with the city about 5 years ago as your energy consultant when they were going out for bids and invitation for bids for these streetlight circuits that you have outside the PUB area. And back then in 2017, you were paying an average of 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour for the energy of all the streetlights. When we went out there for bids in 2017, we were actually very pleasantly surprised when the bids came in that they came in with an average, Direct Energy came in with a quote of 2.8 cents per kilowatt hour, which saved the city about $25,000 per year on the budget for those streetlights. Back then, the maximum contract you could get was 5 years because, you know, if they'd have given us 10 years at 10.8 back then, we'd have jumped on it. Now here in with the Ukrainian crisis and everything, and we having a shortage of natural gas, which is 80% of the resource for our power plant in the state of Texas, energy prices have really skyrocketed. So this really came at an opportune time for not just you, but several institutions across the state. We went out for bids here in June, and out of all the suppliers, because only 2 suppliers actually bid. One is the incumbent, Direct Energy, the other one is Energy Resources. We found that the quotes started from 8.3 cents per kilowatt hour for a 1-year contract and dropped to a low of 5.3 for a 10-year contract. So it's showing anywhere of an increase of 40% on your budget, down to about 18% went out for 10 years. But my job to consult the city on is to kind of look at the outlook and see where we're at. And right now, it looks like energy may start to come down in 3 to 4 years. So I was kind of looking and saying, where is this range and what should we do? We've already saved $125,000 over the last 5 years when we got our last contract. This year, I'm kind of looking at, and I'm probably going to recommend that we go right about 5 or 6 years where we have a 5.3 or 5.5 cent per kilowatt hour rate, which is really about only 1 penny from where we started back 5 years ago at 4.5. That means we saved 125,000. And over 5 years, we're probably going to give up about 60,000. So we're still going to be 60,000 ahead if you had looked at it over a 10-year range. And that's kind of what I feel the city should do. And even though we want authorization up to 10 years, we're probably going to sign 5 or 6 years and then wait for the energy and see where it goes from there. Because I don't think we should go out that far. I believe energy prices, maybe they're not going to drop down back to 2.8, but they might be back there somewhere around 4 cents. And just wanted to entertain any questions, because I know this is a commodity and everything's all over the place right now. 2 weeks ago when I was checking the market on the 15th in June, when we got quotes, we were right where we are today. 2 weeks ago, they dropped down a little bit. And today, they're just almost exactly the way we were on June 15th. And it just happens because every time there's a hot day in the state of Texas, prices go up. And so I'm recommending that we probably execute here as soon as possible, while we're kind of still within a decent budget over 5 years. Questions?
Council, is there any issue with the contract length, 10 years?
No.
Okay.
And again, it's up to 10 years. I think he might propose something shorter.
Okay, do we have any questions? Entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 9, consideration and action to approve the interlocal agreement between the City of Brownsville and the Brownsville Public Utilities Board for the Downtown Water and Wastewater Project with 2021 American Recovery Program Act and other funding sources, ARPA-2021-1112, Engineering and Public Works.
Good afternoon again, Mayor, Commissioners. This particular item is an agreement between the City of Brownsville and Brownsville PUB. The scope of the project is for potential wastewater improvements in the heart of downtown and potential water improvements. These improvements were selected based on the city's needs and Brownsville PUB's infrastructure upgrades that are needed. The budget for this project is not to exceed $14.5 million. At this time, if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them for you.
I would just add that we looked specifically at what existing permits, active permits are in and around the downtown. In addition, that what we think is oncoming with regard to permitting, we looked at the big 2.0 that BCAC project has to really identify, where that investment should go versus it's easier to go this route or that route. But I think it's really important to understand if we're talking about fire suppression, how do we have to upsize in specific areas and then also prioritize that? So it really was, I would say shoulders to shoulder with PUB, going over a street block by block with the downtown manager, and really reviewing at permits active, and permits that we think may come on board or newer projects that may come on board, and took that time to really look through those needs.
Would it be fair to say, Helen, where we've got commercial development going on in other parts of the city, these same types of services are already readily available, but downtown is one of the areas where we're trailing in?
That is a fair statement. I would say at some areas, we're actually looking at certain clay pipes or locations are in the alley and not on the public street. So, and that can become costly if one of our pillars is redevelopment of downtown. This is a way where those costly infrastructure can be paid through ARPA versus the developer.
Thank you.
I have a question. When you're replacing a water line downtown, how does that impact the people that access that water line, and how do they get water in the meantime?
Typically, they'll have temporary services, or we'll set up enough work to where it's cutting off for certain hours of the day, not multiple days at a time.
So they'll be taken care of?
Yes.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Item number 10, discussion and action to approve resolution number 2022-046, appointing individuals to serve on the rotating list of outside counsel as prescribed under section 38-196 of the city's Code of Ordinances, City Attorney's Office.
Good evening. My name is Gabby Salinas, and I'm the legal intern with the City Attorney's Office. And I'm just here to follow up on the amendment made to Chapter 38 under the City Code of Ordinances that was approved on December 7th, 2021, regarding the rotating list of outside counsel. To establish the rotating list, the mayor and each city commissioner must appoint an attorney to be placed on a rotating list of pre-approved outside legal counsel, serving the Ethics Advisory Commission to investigate the cases filed alleging a violation by a city commission member, city manager, or city attorney. The outside legal counsel must meet 3 qualifications. A, they must have a minimum of 5 years practicing as an attorney in the state of Texas. B, they must be in good standing with the state of Texas, the state bar. And C, a strong experience in conducting internal investigations, including discovery, witness interviews, findings, and recommendations. Once all 7 appointments have been confirmed, the appointee shall be assigned random placements on the list, places 1 through 7, by the city secretary by the drawing of lots. Any questions?
So we just have to appoint somebody, that's it, right? Okay.
Does this appointment include the item about how not one person can serve on more than 2 boards?
I don't think we have that anymore.
I don't think the limitation on, the board limitation doesn't apply to this, does it,
Yeah,
Counselor?
this wouldn't be a board position. This is just of council
So
to represent.
it's okay.
Right.
Okay.
You want to go ahead? Oh.
And if you have names, we'll take them now, and then the remainder of the names will leave for the following meeting to confirm a one resolution with all the names, but just.
Okay. Well, I haven't asked him, or I'm not sure if there's any sort of conflicts, because I know he does some municipal work, but I would just, I would appoint Arnold Aguilar.
And I would appoint Aaron Hernandez Garcia.
Wait, Trey, sorry, Trey, who did you appoint? I couldn't hear.
Arnold Aguilar.
Arnold Aguilar.
Since we still have some vacancies, we can just make a motion to table and we'll bring this back for a full slate. That might give other commissioners time to think of names or vet their names.
I'll move to table.
A motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
And Mayor Commissioners, if I may take a point of privilege at this moment, I know it's been a long meeting, but this is Ms. Salinas's, next week's gonna be her last week. She was an outstanding intern for our office. We challenged her in many ways, including asking her to co-author a legal article that was published by the Texas Bar College. We will actually be presenting that topic, excessive use of force issues at a conference later this week. And also, while she was an intern for our office, she was appointed to the St. Mary's Law Journal. Just want to say congratulations to her, and we're appreciative of all the work she's done for our office.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And she did a really good job presenting to the commission for the first time too, so good job.
That was her. That was her last assignment, and
Acquired skill for sure.
Next item is board appointments, consideration and action on resolution number 2022-044 to appoint new capital improvement advisory committee members, multimodal transportation.
Is there members already? Because I didn't see that in the packet. Okay.
Mayor Commission, during the last meeting, we had 3 appointees, which is on your screen right now. Commissioner Gowen, Mayor Mendez, and then Commissioner Galonsky made the appointments. The other members did not, and so we would like to fill those vacancies to continue the traffic impact fee study.
May we go back one slide?
Yes.
Because I know on some of these, Joel, you indicated that you had proactively spoken to them and they expressed a desire to continue.
Yes, the ones in red were the only 2 that did not respond.
Okay, then I'm happy to have Victor Alvarez continue as the ETJ rep since he was appointed by the District 3 Commissioner.
We have you made a motion, so you're.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, those opposed? Okay. Now, Commissioner Cowan, you have somebody in red as well. Do you have an appointment?
Yeah, I'll appoint Rick Canales.
Okay. I'll second that. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Who's left? Pedro?
Do we have somebody left there?
You can
You
confirm
can-
the person who's in the position that you would normally appoint.
You can also nominate somebody
Or you
that's
can
not on the
nominate
list.
someone else.
Yeah, this is the current list, and then we did have 3 applicants, which is on this list.
I'll nominate Aldo Zamora.
Okay, we have a motion? Is there a
Second.
second? We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
I know that previously I had appointed Frank Rispoli, but he has declined the invitation. So instead, I would like to appoint Mariana Chavez.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for Mariana Chavez. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We did already have executive session, so items as discussed in executive session.
Yes, sir. Item number 1, consideration and action, if any, related to all matters discussed in closed session regarding Project Studio, included but not limited to authorizing the city manager to enter into a Chapter 380 Economic Development Agreement and/or to execute any pertinent documentation for its implementation. City Manager's Office.
Mayor, Commissioners, that, based on discussion in executive sessions, my understanding, there's no action on this item at this time.
Okay.
Item number 2, consideration and action, if any, related to the collective bargaining labor agreements between the city and the duly recognized bargaining agents for the city's law enforcement, police and fire personnel.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Marina Solesi with the City Manager's Office. And tonight with us is Ms. Rebecca Hayward with Denton and Navarro. So we have an update for you in regards to the collective bargaining negotiations with the Brownsville Police Association. Here we show a timeline with the police negotiations. We started with the ground rules back in April, and since then we have had 5 sessions. Our focus, our goal is one city. As we go, this is the theme of parity with our fire department and the rest of the city. We continued negotiations. We continue the theme from the 2019 negotiations that was emphasized for the need for PD to come over to the civilian health plan. In December 2019, when it was brought before the City Commission, there was feedback from our commission and discussions to have that goal of having the PD association and the PD group come over to the same plan. There was the awareness for the 3 years with that goal in mind, and also with the understanding of our fiscal position with the city and increased healthcare costs. The Police Association negotiations is concurrently with the Fire Association negotiations, so we're undergoing negotiations with the fire team as well, and as well the non-civil service compensation analysis as we go through our budget. We do have the additional costs of the workers' comp claims, which we have additional data. That's a 500,000 increase, and absorption of the safer firefighters of the additional 15 firefighters of 1.2 million. At the same time, there has been investment in patrol units, ambulances, equipment such as ladder truck and CAD RMS dispatch technology, and sustaining claims by the police that are more than twice per the other employees. So we'll just highlight some of the slides with that information and data. And this, again, asserting the parity of economies of scale. Again, one city is our goal. So a lot of work has been done. There has been, within the last 60 days, the following articles that are listed on this slide that have been temporarily agreed to, or TA'd, or no changes to date for the Police Association. So we're going to highlight some of those TA'd articles. On this slide, we'll highlight Article 22. This is in regards to sick leave. The association did request for accruals to be for 10 hours for those employees who are on the 410 schedule. And we came back and said no, because at the end, the officers at the end are still working 40 hours per week. The association conceded to that and agreed to withdraw the current grievances surrounding the accruals for that. On the next slide here on Article 24, similar, there was a request for additional accruals, and this was for specific
group for those that had seniority within the police department. And instead of the city, what we came back with was an offering of 2 floating holidays that's inconsistent with the new handbook policy. We know that as personal days, now they're floating holidays. So this was offered not only to a select group of police officers, but it's being offered to all of the police officers. This article, with it being TA'd, would also resolve the grievances currently that we have. Additionally, with Article 25, this is another item where we do show focus on parity with the fire department. The association wanted some language that was meant for workers' comp, for those that are on workers' comp to also get holiday pay. The police currently did not have that, but our fire department did. So we focused on the parity, and we did agree to that. We just countered with more language that's specific and less broad. Here are some additional TAs that we have, including clothing allowance. That's one that we do want to highlight. The association requested shoes for detectives. So instead of just focusing on the detectives, the city came back and offered a $100 shoe allowance, and this would be for all officers. In addition, we would leverage our city's procurement to do that, the ordering through that for tax exemption and leveraging economies of scale. On this slide, you'll see some additional TAs. One of which is just going more electronic and digital instead of using paper slips for drug testing. So the association agreed, as well as there was cost savings with Article 43 and limiting the appeals to instead of having an arbitrator going through the Civil Service Commission and limiting to that. So we see some cost savings to that. We will realize some of the cost savings there. And other than that, we do have Articles 21, 29, and 41, which remain pending. Some main takeaways, and we have data with slides that show additional information from that and provide to the association, is that the civilian health plan is not far off where they are currently are. So we show the differences between the civilian health plan and their health plan. We also have not increased the premium rates to our civilian plan in the last 2 years, and we don't intend to do so within this coming year, so that's 3 years total. Also, when in comparison to other cities in the valley, the civilian health plan is very competitive, and in most cases better. So we have a couple of slides that highlight those comparisons and what the difference is within the cities in the valley. Also, a point that's very important, and it goes along with the theme of what we've shared 3 years ago, is that we cannot continue to sustain the cost of their plan, and the money can be focused and better spent in wage increases. So there's that offer as far as the wage increases, and it was emphasized again back in 2019. Final point is the guaranteed increases in wages is better for their membership than going to an evergreen period, where just to keep their health plan. So basically, we would be at a 0%, no increases, since we would go into an evergreen with them. So as for the wages, as that's for Article 21, that's one of the articles that's still pending. The association, their first proposal was for a 5-year contract with the increases as follows: 8% for the first year, 4% for the second year, 3% for the third year, and then the fourth year is 3%, and finally 2% for year 5. In addition to that, the association also requested increases in seniority pay, assignment pay, tactical team, and education pay. Our initial offer, the city's initial offer, was 2% for each of the 3 years, so and on a 3-year plan, contingent for them, and this is really the important piece, right? Going back to the theme, contingent on them for coming onto the civilian plan. And for Article 21, the city did offer to honor their proposed health insurance plan. So they're authored and proposed a health insurance plan. We're proposing for it to be kept for their retirees and adjust the compensation with 3% increase in year 1, and then a 3% increase in year 2, and a 2% in year 3. We also agreed to increase the tactical pay from $25 per pay period to $50 per pay period. And then any other requests were rejected. The city did deny the educational pay consistent with our theme, going back to the one city, sharing that we proposed to extend the same education pay to the fire for their first time. And we had already agreed to the education pay in the last cycle. So, and of course, this is all contingent at the course on the PD active employees coming over to the health civilian plan. So we did have the very last proposal, so the most updated proposal was that the city accepting their health plan proposal, which came with an increase in premiums, deductibles, and prescription costs. But the association was very, very adamant that they did not want to come to the city's healthcare plan. So their last offer in wages was coming down from a 5-year contract to a 3-year contract with the following wage increases: 4% year 1, 3% year 2, and 3% on year 3. So we are not very far as the gap in the wages, but we are quite far apart on the health plan insurance. These are the numbers here on how it looks like as far as what we have as baseline if nothing is done versus the proposal of the 332. And you'll see the difference there as far as the total cost. This is on an annual basis, and that would be a $28.8 million. That's based on our proposal. Then here you'll see again, we have the baseline here of 27.09 million, what the annual cost of pay, benefits, and expenses would be. This is on a total cost based on PD's proposal, which is a 4.33% from years 2023 to 2025. This slide here is very important. It focuses on the expenses as far as the health insurance cost per employee. These are the comparisons between the fiscal year 2019, when we had these discussions back then, and versus the fiscal year 2022. On the police plan side, in 2019, the cost of health insurance per employee was $15,000. Now in 2022, it increased significantly to $21,700 per employee. When you compare that to fire civilian, in 2019, it was $9,500 per employee, and the cost for health insurance actually went down on the fire civilian plan to $9,400 per employee. I'll run through these slides fairly quickly. I know it's the last presentation, but it's really important just to see what the differences are, the gaps here on the plans, on the active, non-civil service, and all fire. You'll see the premiums here for the employee, and I'll highlight like the employee and the employee premium for employee plus family. So for example, the largest gap here is $54 when we see the employee plus spouse. The active non-civil service and fire is $234 versus the civil service police is $180. So it's not a big gap there. In some instances, it's just a $6 gap. Here you'll see comparisons for the retirees. So as mentioned earlier, we did offer to go on the police department's proposed health plan to keep that for the retirees. So here we have the retired non-civil service and all fire, the premium costs versus the retired police civil service. Here the largest difference is on the employee plus family and employee plus spouse of $2,085, and the smallest gap would be the employee only with $757. On the next slides, you'll just see comparisons of other cities and again, how competitive our health plan is as far as citywide. And I'll go across the employee plus family. For example, ours is $260 a premium. The Harlingen plan is $462.83. You'll see the same theme with the other cities. Here's McAllen. Our employee plus family is also lower than McAllen's. Here's Edinburgh, so you compare 260 for the city versus 465.39 for Edinburgh, and so forth. One of the items also that we mentioned at the beginning is the cost for the workman's compensation. With the projections here on our cost estimation, there is going to be we see a dollar change of an increase of $460,429. Here's the listing of the contribution increases and how that looks like with the different codes and descriptions. 2021 to 2022 actuals versus the estimated 2022-2023 contribution calculation with a total of over $1.257 million. Here's just another slide showing the increase for the contribution. So that's another factor based on our fiscal position. Another factor is a safer grant, just a big pie, right? Seeing the whole pie for the city, as far as the city and the need to contribute towards the 15 additional firefighters. Here's a breakdown of what the award was, but also what our actual cost is for the 15 additional firefighters. The total budget needed for these positions for fiscal year 2024 is $1.2 million. And those were the major highlights, Commission. We're here to entertain any questions that you may have.
Do you need any action from us?
No, no action.
Okay. I'm not sure why you presented it then, why you presented back there and then again out here. So there being no action then, looking for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Meeting has adjourned at 9:03 PM.